one man that has got a live card on this evening in Telford. Looking forward to a couple of fights. In particular on this card is Hall of Fame promoter Frank Warren, who very kindly has given up a bit of time to come and join myself and Gareth. Frank, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Adam. I'm good, mate. It's good to speak to you both.
Yes, indeed.
Great to have you on. Looking forward to Nathan Heaney, Jason Flatley Part 2 after the way that the first one finished. There's a nice bit of needle in that. Looking forward to it. And I'm in particular looking forward to Andrew Kane in action tonight. I'm a big fan of him against Ian Bellew. I think that'll be a really good fight.
Me too. And our new heavyweight protege.
Of course, Moses. Yes, of course. Moses is in action as well tonight. We've got to talk heavyweights. That's where we've got to start the conversation, Frank, of course. We thought that we were on April 29th at Wembley, we were going to get Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. We've been told this week by yourself and Alex Krasiuk that is not going to be the case. Frank, what happened?
Well, what happened is they withdrew from the fight. We had a few problems last week, and the way forward I felt was to get everybody on the phone together with their lawyers, respective lawyers, and deal with the points that they raised on the contract. So we did that call last Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. 4 lawyers on the phone representing everybody, plus all the parties, and we dealt with all of them except for one, and that was the rematch. And that was, and what had happened is that Tyson said he wasn't interested in a rematch. And he, after I spoke to him, he said, look, we'll do the rematch, and I then told him that. So that was everything agreed, except for the split of the rematch. So we agreed everything. And then the next day we were going to, or the guys were going to talk to sort out the terms and, some negotiations to see where we were with that. Anyway, cut a long story short, that just fell apart, and Aegis, his manager, Usyk's manager, sent an email overnight, and I think I showed it to you, Gareth, didn't I, on Thursday, basically saying they was withdrawing from the fight, that he'd had enough, and I don't know what that was all about, but that's what he did. And I'm hearing all this stuff that's being said and so forth, which basically was a lot of nonsense. And then I think talkSPORT with Jim White and Simon Jordan got Alex Krasiuk, his promoter, on, and Alex said that he would need 15 minutes to explain why all the different points that Tyson wanted and why it didn't take place. And I then got a call from talkSPORT saying, would I go on the programme? I said, yes, but get him back on. And that's exactly what I went, and that's what happened. He came back on, and I said to Alex, what are you talking about roughly? I can't remember verbatim, but said, what are you talking about? There was no, if you don't do 15 minutes, we agreed to everything except for one thing, which was on the Sunday, which he accepted. And I said, you're the guys who pulled out, I want to make this fight, and let's get it done. And then he said, during that conversation, he said on air, and if anybody cares to, use their ears and listen to what he said, I'm sure you can download it or go back onto talkSPORT's website and you hear what he said. He actually said he doesn't blame me and he doesn't blame Queensberry for it all falling apart. And then he goes on to say, Tyson chose to hear the back demands. So Tyson chose to hear the first part of it. He didn't want to hear the second. This is a small thing. I'm using his words here. I mean, it's nothing to do with Queensberry or Frank. It's just a matter of how Tyson estimates himself, meaning what he thinks he values himself at. And then he goes on to say, I'm not even blaming him because it is what it is. So he's not blaming Tyson.
But Frank,
which is contrary to what he said and what they're saying since.
Frank,
when we're confronting each other live on the air, that's not what's being said now or was being said before.
Frank, the bottom line though, you've made some massive fights in your career, some of the very biggest fights in the world, and some fights you haven't been able to make because you aren't able to make them. Why is it when two fighters, does it come down to the amount of money they want in the end and their egos, which is what most people are wondering why the fight doesn't get over the line. It's such an important fight for boxing, as we all know. Listen, I sat and had lunch with you on Thursday. You are as frustrated and disappointed as anyone out there. Let me make that plain. And you weren't in a mood to mince your words on Thursday over it. Why is it that some of these fights do not get made? Is it money and ego?
Look, it's a bit of both. You know, both sides have their
price.
The price of what they think they're valued at. I mean, and commercially, Tyson, whatever way you want to look at it, Tyson, it commercially is the A side of the card, and you can judge on that, as I said to you on Thursday. First of all, is his fights that took place in the States. His 3 fights with Deontay Wilder, which took place 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning in the UK. The combined pay-per-view for those fights was over 3 million, well over 3 million. That's massive value, you know.
No, talkSPORT's listening figures were record figures for those as well. I mean, there's no getting away from it.
So the point I'm making about it, so that's a commercial value. Last year, his fight against Dillian Whyte was the highest grossing pay-per-view in the UK.
Last year it beat the Usyk Joshua fight. It was a bigger number than that. He broke all box office records at Wembley last April for that fight with Dillian Whyte. For the highest grossing event, not boxing event, ever, the highest grossing event to take place at Wembley. That's what it, you know, that's his drawing power. So you've got to look at, from his perspective and from Usyk's, why did, you know, when we were doing we were talking originally to them both about, both sides about, you know, who's going to get what. We're negotiating, saying, you know, representing our man, this is what we think he's worth, and they come back and said what he's worth. Tyson then put a video out saying 70-30. Now, he put that out, he just put it out of his own volition. Mm-hmm. And shouldn't have accepted it, should he?
Yeah, they accepted it. There was no negotiation. Look, it's very easy. Didn't come back and say, you know what, 70-30, let's make it 60-40 and let's settle in a minute. There was nothing. He accepted it. And the reason he accepted it, two reasons he accepted it. One is because where is he going to earn that type of money? Who's he going to fight this? His mandatory is against Daniel Dubois. Daniel's with me. He's a young and up-and-coming heavyweight. At this moment in time, he doesn't have the drawing capacity.
It's an O2 arena fight, isn't it? It's an O2 arena fight.
Well, yeah. And so he's not in a position at this moment in time to, he won't deliver the numbers that Tyson would deliver. It's as simple as that. So that as far as Usyk, who's 38 years of age, concerned, is money in the bank for him fighting Tyson. The rematch, Tyson said he didn't want a rematch. And the reason he didn't want a rematch, he wanted everything on the line. Winner walks away with the 4 belts. They wanted the rematch, and the reason they wanted the rematch, even if, you know, and I believe Tyson won, but if Tyson won, he's still getting more money than we would get fighting anybody as a loser, miles more money. So the financial side of it, you know, at the end of it, what they asked for, they got, and it's ridiculous that we got ourselves into this position. What annoys me is that on that same program, on the White and Jordan show, on that same thing, when I was talking to Alex, I said, look, let's try and resurrect this. And I remember Jim saying, can't you guys sort this out now? What does it take? I said, I'm not going to negotiate on the radio. We're cool afterwards. And I rang him straight afterwards, and he sent me a text back, and he said to me, I'll call you in an hour, whatever it is. Then he sent me another text saying he wanted to wait for Aegis, who lives in America, to get him on the line so we can speak together. Aegis came on and he said, it's dead. Don't want the fight. He said that Usyk had now gone back and was in Kiev. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if he's in Kiev, he must have left Turkey, where he was training, quite a while before, because there's a no-fly zone over
Ukraine for obvious reasons. And to get there, you've got to go to Poland and then get a train to get to Kiev, which takes about 10 or 12 hours. And you've got to get to whatever I don't know what airport in Poland, train station in Poland, but you've got to fly from Turkey there. So for me, he must have come out of training and been travelling as we were talking.
Frank, are you concerned about the court of public opinion? Because the majority of fans that have obviously been trying the very best to keep up to date with everything that's been going on over the last 8 months. And obviously in the middle of this, we had the social media back and forth with Tyson and Anthony Joshua. The vibe that I'm getting from fans is that they're losing patience with Tyson and the antics on social media, saying various things and then fights not materializing. Are you worried about that court of public opinion?
Sorry, but when Adam, when you say fights, what's the plural of fights?
Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk.
Well, that weren't down to Tyson, was it? I mean, you go on IFL and you hear Frank Smith after all these things broke down. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm just making. Yeah, but maybe the listeners don't know. But Frank Smith categorically went on air and said, first of all, there was too short a time to get this together, which I don't know why we was wasting nearly 6 weeks on negotiating. And then he said, which was the most crucial point of it all, he said, AJ doesn't even have a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't appoint his trainer until this fight that's got coming up. He never had a trainer at that stage. So why were we even having the negotiations? Why didn't they say that from day one? So don't blame Tyson for that. Tyson wanted that fight, he said, I'll give you 60-40. Do you remember? And they were quite pleased with that. And Hearn said, Eddie Hearn said this week, we'd already agreed the terms. There was no problem with the terms. What it was he was never ready. And we moved the date, which we was going to be on the 12th of November last year, because they said he wouldn't be ready till December. And if you recall, we didn't really want to do that because we obviously wanted to do the Usyk fight in February, but we moved it to the 3rd of December, and then he was out. And then we obviously had to get a replacement and wound up being Chisora.
Frank, this is for the listeners now, right? I've got a list of fights. You have Daniel Dubois, Tyson Fury and Joe Joyce under your promotional banner. Will we see these fights? Can you give, in the next 2-3 years, just tell me if you think we will. Usyk versus Dubois.
Yep, it got to be. It's been ordered. It'll be ordered on the 1st of April
by the WBA. I hope so.
Yep.
Fury versus Joshua.
I don't know. That's up to Tyson. I mean, I have no problem with it. That's up to Tyson, obviously, and see what happens to Joshua next week.
Fury versus Joyce.
I think that will happen. Tyson has said that he would like that fight last year. So that's another one for him to consider this year. Listen, Tyson's been... nobody, and I've got to tell you, nobody more than Tyson was disappointed. He has been in training. And if anybody cares to look online, have a look at the man. The man is fitter. Well, he's fitter than most fighters are on fight night.
Joyce versus Joshua.
I'd love to see that. You've got to ask the other side.
Joyce versus Wilder.
I think we can make that. I spoke with Shelley Finkel this evening. We was talking about various things.
Joyce versus Usyk.
I'd love that fight in a heartbeat. And again, that will be ordered by the WBO, provided he beats Zhang. That'll be ordered when the WBO's turn comes up for the mandatory defence.
Fingers and toes crossed, then. That's 6 fights, and there are about 3 or 4 others in this era of the heavyweights. If we get all those fights, and we get 2 or 3 others, like Joshua and Wilder, Usyk and Wilder, this could be one of the great eras of heavyweight boxing. Do you agree?
I certainly do. Certainly British boxing. Now, all these guys, the Brits are involved. I mean, fingers crossed, I've got everything crossed. I'm sitting here looking like Ben Turpin.
Frank, obviously with this off, what's Tyson going to do now?
I've spoken to him a couple of times, and Tyson gets very peed off, and he was very angry and frustrated. And I understand, some of that social media stuff. Obviously, the guy looks after it in my office. Obviously, he tells me what's going on, and there's 2 camps in this country. There's the Joshua fans and there's the Tyson Fury fans. And the Joshua fans believe that Joshua will beat him, and obviously the Tyson's fans feel he'll beat. So you're only going to get, all we're going to get from the Joshua fans is hate. That's how it is. Tyson's done nothing wrong here. He wanted to make this fight. He's absolutely annoyed about it. But he's been very philosophical when I spoke with him a day before yesterday, and I said, we're going to talk tomorrow. He's had some good news, though, which is a good thing. Is that he's got
child.
Another seventh child on the way. And I had some good news. My son Francis him and his wife Sam had a baby. I've got another grandchild.
16th grandchild, isn't that, Frank? Something like that?
That's my 11th. I've
11th. That's right, 11. You have got 11. Congratulations. A rugby team next.
Yeah. So, no, I might get a rugby team with the way things go.
Frank, can I dive in as well? Can we see, is it the richest fight in heavyweight boxing, Fury against Joshua? And is there a chance? I know that Fury's turning it down at the moment and you're not sure about it. Is there a chance of that being at Wembley Stadium later this summer?
Well, look, if it was made, that's the place it would be, but it's a massive if. And
richest fight?
I think it's a bigger fight. I think it's a much bigger fight, actually, than Usyk. But for me, the fight I want to see, I wanted to see, and I wanted to see it from selfish reasons as well, was the Usyk fight, because the four belts were on the line.
Yeah.
And more importantly, that it would have cemented Tyson
legacy.
As far as everybody's concerned,
yeah.
I think he's the best heavyweight of his generation, but you wouldn't be nobody were now able to argue against that. And I've got to take that to those people who which suddenly we've got a few Tyson haters at the moment. Listen, this fella's never ducked anybody. He went out to Germany, underdog. Do you know what he got? He walked away with £1 million from that fight.
20%, wasn't it?
And he was the mandatory challenger. That's what he walked away. But he went there and he won that title.
Was that 80-20, Frank, by the way? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought it was,
And when he went to and the first fight when he fought Deontay Wilder, I mean, he took a real short end of it to fight Wilder, but we believed he had we could win the fight. It was a draw, as we know. Bad decision, but he got a draw. But he took that's what he done. So don't criticise Tyson Fury. He's had three fights in the States against Wilder. Great fights. One was probably the round of the last 10 years. That last round in the first fight. Second fight was phenomenal performance, and the third one is the best heavyweight fight I've seen live in my time in boxing.
Frank, congratulations on the 11th grandchild.
Number 11.
And thank you so much for joining us on the show. Take care.
Will do.
Good night, Frank. Cheers.
Top man.